Hello, my name is Amal. Thank you for having me. Today I'll be talking about my research project, Religiosity in the Middle East. Just some background information about me. Besides being a student at the University of Baltimore, I'm also an expatriate of Saudi Arabia. I've spent almost 10 years in the country, and today I'm very pleased to be able to give you all a window into my experience regarding a sometimes controversial topic, religiosity. Without further ado, let's begin. Before discussing my study, I think it's imperative that I first attempt to try and define religiosity. Regardless of race, gender, or experience, everybody to some extent has been exposed to some form of religion or spirituality, making it very personal to each individual. I believe that quantifying religiosity and spirituality does not quite do justice to the true meaning it holds for people, but it is a start in evaluating the importance of religiosity for an individual, which is why when I discuss religiosity, I will be measuring it based off of a questionnaire scale that I sent out to my participants and the results that I got. This wouldn't be a conversation about the Middle East without discussing some of the stigmas that the Western world has. To begin with, the incorrect concept that there is a binary of being either an oppressive figure or being oppressed, that men are typically dangerously aggressive while women are completely submissive. I don't believe that the entire world subscribes to this very detrimental stereotype, but I do believe that it's one perpetuated by the media, which is why I feel the need to address it. It can sometimes even be difficult to find literature that doesn't also perpetuate the stigma, which is why I feel the need to do my study and to provide you all with the perspective that I see the world in. To address one of the main stigmas up front, I decided to look into gender and how it impacts religiosity and whether or not a particular gender was more inclined to it. This led me to the very famous paper regarding gender and religiosity. Gender and Religion, the Constructing Universality, Constructing Complexity, Sullins, 2006. It was a meta-analysis of gender and religiosity, and a point that they noted was that overall women were perceived as being more religious, when in reality men would often have higher religiosity scores. A potential factor for why this could be is because in terms of society, women are expected to be more nurturing, and that coincides with the values that religiosity has, which perpetuates a stereotype. But I was also determined to find research about religiosity done in predominantly Muslim countries by Muslim researchers in order to see what their perspective would be, which is when I stumbled upon the paper Religiosity in Relation with Psychological Distress and Mental Well-Being Among Muslims. It was a survey done in Sargodha, Pakistan on undergraduate university students, and interestingly enough, this was one of the many papers that I found that did not support Sullins 2006, instead stating that women would often have higher religiosity scores than men. And after learning of this, I felt inclined to do my own study upon reviewing literature, and I decided that I would research the relationship between religiosity and gender in both a population of participants in Saudi Arabia and the University of Baltimore student pool. The scale I chose to evaluate religiosity was the Abrahamic religiosity scale that was based on the commonalities between the Abrahamic faiths. I decided to use this scale because I felt that it related to the predominant religions in both the countries that I was looking at, with Saudi Arabia being a predominantly Muslim country and the US having a large population of Christians. So my hypotheses were, going into my study, that women would have higher scores regarding religiosity than men, and that the sample taken from Saudi Arabia will have higher religiosity scores than the University of Baltimore student pool. My methods were that I sent out 2 surveys, one to the University of Baltimore and one to the Saudi participants. My University of Baltimore survey was sent to the participant pool and people could get extra credit for partaking, while my Saudi survey had to go out through link and people were encouraged to send it forward through snowball sampling. My survey consisted of a consent form, demographic questions, and the Abrahamic religiosity scale. My descriptive statistics: I had 50 participants take my survey from the University of Baltimore, 45 of which were female, 5 of which were male. The majority of the participants were under 34 years old, and what I found very interesting was how varied the marital responses were in terms of people would report being in relationships, single, unmarried, divorced, separated. Well, it contrasted the Saudi Arabia as it was primarily either married or unmarried. Also, for the Saudi Arabia participants, I had 20 participants in total, 13 of which were female, 7 of which were males, and the ages were more spread out. It was a little bit more towards either the 18 to 24 age or 40 to 50 range, which I found was interesting. In order to process my results, I did a 2x2 factorial ANOVA, and as you can see, there was less males for the US sample, which resulted in larger error bars. There was a significant difference between the samples of Saudi and US, and the significance between genders was very close, but not significant, and I do believe that more research should be done in order to determine whether or not a potential significance could occur. So in regards to my Ttest, as I mentioned before, there was a significant difference between my religiosity and the sample, and there was not a significant difference between religiosity and gender. As mentioned prior, I do believe that a potential limitation in my study was the fact that I did not have that many participants take my survey, especially within my Saudi participant sample, and that could potentially limit my responses and how many people I could get to respond, and I didn't really get a full scope of participants, as many participants as I would like to potentially maybe show whether or not there was a significance between gender and religiosity, which leads me to my current study. Currently, I am doing a replication study of the Raza et al. Study that I mentioned prior. I found it very interesting when I was looking into it, and I wanted to see what other factors impacted religiosity and what the relationships could be. My current study is a cross-cultural study between the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan, which brings me to my final point. I believe that religiosity is very important, and upon looking at literature, it also mentions that how increased religiosity can also improve mental well-being. However, an issue that's currently going on is religiosity isn't taken seriously, and with all the things that are going on in the world, it's very difficult to focus in on mental well-being and all the factors that can potentially improve mental well-being. For example, religiosity increases as social support increases, and especially in communities in the United States, social support is very difficult to have, especially within the Black American community, in which there's high levels of police brutality and division, and it impacts mental health negatively oftentimes. And also, when there's adverse political and social circumstances, it increases social distress. So now is the time that we really need something: religiosity, social support, mental well-being. And if we don't look into it within even our own communities, we can sometimes inhibit the potential of growth and development and improving the mental health of our overall community. That being said, I would like to thank everyone that has had a hand in my project, especially Professor Frederick for all the help that I've received from him throughout all my projects. I'd like to thank the faculty, students, my family. I really appreciate everyone's support through my study, and thank you.